Hi, everybody. Welcome to English Digest. I'm Stephanie.
I'm Tom.
Hey, it's our news digest, and we're going to be talking about chickens. I know a lot of people prefer to eat chicken meat over, say, beef or pork. I don't enjoy chicken very much. It's very tasteless to me, which means it's bland, doesn't have a lot of flavor, unless you get the rotisserie chicken at a certain big box store that starts with the letter C and ends with an O and has a cost in there somewhere. Anyway, I do like the rotisserie chicken that they do, but for the most part, I'm not a big chicken fan. But we're going to be talking about how to treat chickens better and having a better chicken commitment.
Absolutely. So, of course, as you know, in order to eat meat, the animals need to be raised in some fashion. And some people are concerned about the way chickens are being raised, which is what our lesson is about today. It's our all-English unit for the month of December. And it's our News Digest unit as well. So let's find out what this is all about. All about chickens. Cluck, cluck, cluck. Let's listen to the entire contents of our lesson now one time.
Throughout Europe, one kind of chicken reigns supreme. The Ross 308 is a breed developed specifically to grow rapidly. In just 35 days, it can be slaughtered and packaged for sale. No other breed on the market is as quick to reach its ideal weight, but many come close. Animal welfare activists take issue with the cruelty inherent in this factory farming process, though, and have taken steps to change it. Their efforts in the UK have yielded a measure of success, with big names like KFC agreeing to abide by the Better Chicken Commitment. Entities that have signed the Better Chicken Commitment, an international initiative aimed at eliminating the use of fast-growing breeds like the Ross 308, agree to switch to slower-growing breeds by 2026. They will also monitor the welfare of the chickens they are responsible for and provide them with lower-density enclosures. Most chickens that people eat today are raised in cramped, inhumane conditions. When these circumstances combine with generations of breeding for rapid growth, the result is great suffering for the chickens involved. The Royal Society for the Prevention of Cruelty to Animals found that they are more susceptible to diseases and that they have much higher mortality rates when compared with slower-growing breeds. Some might say that people cannot, in good conscience, eat meat that comes from animals that are tortured so badly in the process of being raised. However, protein is an important nutrient, and the low cost of chicken makes this vital component to a healthy diet more accessible, as vegetarian or vegan diets are not the best option for everyone. The Better Chicken Commitment and similar animal welfare plans strike a good balance between compassion and pragmatism.
All right, let's explain the contents of today's lesson in case you need that. And we're talking about treating chickens better. Chickens, of course, are animals that go cluck, 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 and we pluck their feathers and we cut off their heads and we eat their meat and stuff like that.
They also go cockle-doodle-doo.
If they're roosters, indeed. I don't know if hens do that as well.
No, they don't, just roosters.
Okay, roosters are the male chickens and hens are the female.
Yeah, don't call the male chickens cocks, guys. That's not cool. They're roosters, R-O-O-S-T-E-R, and hen, as Tom said, is the female of the chicken breed.
Exactly, and I think mostly we eat hens. I don't think the meat of the roosters is considered good.
They don't have enough fat.
Okay, very good. But in any case, yes, chicken, that's the meat from a chicken. That is part of our diet if you are a meat eater. A lot of people eat chicken, especially here in Taiwan with, gongbao jiding and ji pai fan and stuff like that. And so, of course, chicken is important. And, of course, if you want to buy chicken, you need to buy it from a chicken farm. And they need to raise that chicken. So, of course, a lot of people are concerned about the treatment of of chickens. Are they suffering in the process of being raised? Some people might care about this question. Some people probably don't. It's like, oh, they're chickens. They don't feel anything. Who cares? But some people are concerned, and that's what we're talking about today. Now, throughout Europe, one kind of chicken reigns supreme. Now, here, reign is R-E-I-G-N, reign. And that is the... well, its pronunciation is the same as the stuff that falls out of the sky in liquid form.
Right.
So much here in Taipei. It rains a lot here. But here, reign just means it controls something. It rules a government. Like we could talk about the dictator in North Korea reigning over the country.
Kind of having the most power or importance of anything. It's a funny phrase to me, Tom, because you know I like to watch cooking shows. And at the beginning of every cooking competition called the Iron Chef, they always say, he reigns supreme. So it's kind of fun. I bet our author also watches cooking competitions. So yeah, the one kind of chicken is actually the most important of all the other chickens. Maybe it's used more. It's thought to be a better chicken. And the name of that chicken is actually the Ross 308. They gave it kind of an interesting name. It's a type of breed or a type of breed of the chicken that was developed specifically to grow rapidly. I saw that little phrase there, developed specifically to grow rapidly, and thought, oh, I don't want to eat that chicken. Usually if you want to make animals grow faster, they shoot them full of something called steroids, 类固醇, and it's really not good for your body. So, yeah, this is interesting. I will try to make sure I don't eat any Ross 308s. But what they do is they give them these chemicals to allow them to grow as fast as possible. And in just a little over a month, 35 days, it can be ready to take to the slaughterhouse, cut up, and put into packages for sale. Now, what does it mean, Tom, if you slaughter something?
You kill something, usually an animal, or if you're talking about lots of people being killed, then you say there was a big slaughter back in 1947 or something like that. A lot of people got killed. And slaughter can also be a noun, the slaughter of innocent citizens in the country, etc. And again, this breed of chicken has been developed specifically to grow rapidly. It could have been bred that way to reproduce faster, or as Stephanie said, you probably just feed it a lot of chemicals and stuff to make it grow faster. And of course, in only 35 days, it can be slaughtered and then packaged for sale, and it's ready to go on your plate as chicken fillet or whatever. Now, no other breed on the market is as quick to reach its ideal weight, but many come close. You probably see pictures on the internet from time to time of chickens, current chickens, modern chickens, compared with chickens maybe 100 years ago or 50 years ago. There's quite a difference. They have been bred specifically to grow quickly and to grow big and fat. And, of course, they've probably been using chemicals as well. But indeed, this particular breed, the Ross 308, is the quickest to reach its ideal weight. And other brands come close, of course, but this one is the one that grows the fastest. So you can imagine that meat processors probably prefer this particular breed.
Yeah, I can see why. I have a younger sister who has kind of a small farm on her property, and she has goats and chickens and pigs and even a couple of what do you call those cows that you milk? That you milk for milk. So anyway, dairy cows, right. So yeah, it's kind of interesting. Her chickens look very different from the ones I see on TV that are being used, they're just crammed into a chicken coop and stuffed full of food to grow them as fast as possible. Her chickens are quite happy, and they go around the yard, and they eat what they want. They don't get force-fed. So animal welfare activists, these are people who worry about how animals animals are treated. Your welfare includes your health, your happiness, the situation that you're in. And here, these people are activists. They're socially active and trying to protect animals and how they're treated. They take issue, which means they actually have a problem with the cruelty inherent in this factory farming process. So you can take issue with something, you can protest something. It's kind of the similar idea.
Right, so welfare, of course, is how well something's growing, how comfortable it is. It can also refer to government assistance. If you're too poor to pay for food, you can go on welfare. But in this particular case, activists are concerned about the condition or welfare of animals. And they don't like the cruelty that is inherent in this factory farming process. If something's inherent in something, it's a part of that thing. It is unavoidable. It's kind of permanent there. So basically, they're saying that if you're going to raise chickens this way, then there's going to be some cruelty involved. Cruelty just means treating people or animals in a very terrible way so that they suffer a lot, they have a lot of pain, and things like that. And this is the factory farming process because, as Stephanie said, the chickens are probably kept in small cages or chicken coops, as we call them. And so these activists have taken steps to change it. They want to change this situation and probably have what we call free-range chickens that are raised on farms like your sister's farm.
Right. So inherent often makes me think of something that is a characteristic of something, sort of a sarcastic statement, I could say. Corruption is inherent in government. There's just a lot of corruption that goes along with government. It just happens when people get power and there's a lot of money at stake. There's corruption. Well, you see a lot of cruelty in this factory farming process. The farmers are under a lot of pressure to produce these chickens and get them to market quickly. They don't make a lot of profit in doing it. And so that's why we've had them bred to grow as quickly as possible. So these activists have been trying to change this. Their efforts in the UK, in the United Kingdom, have yielded a measure of success. So they have had some success. When something yields something, just means that's what it produces. Sometimes you'll hear, this particular recipe will yield 6 dozen cookies. That's just on a recipe. So it means with all the batter and the dough that you make, once you bake those little round cookies at the end, you should have about 6 dozen. It yields 6 dozen. So it produces or provides that amount. So, you can see why they have these problems. But with big names like KFC, we used to call it Kentucky Fried Chicken when we were growing up, but now it's just KFC. They've agreed to abide by what we're calling the Better Chicken Commitment. If you make a commitment, you make a solemn promise to do something. And if you abide by something, it means you follow some sort of regulation or rules that you're asked to follow. You're trying to be, obedient. You're trying to do the right thing.
Right. Of course, your teacher may tell you to abide by the school rules, to obey them, etc. And we've got this Better Chicken Commitment, and KFC has agreed to abide by this Better Chicken Commitment. Maybe some other chicken restaurants have decided to abide by this commitment as well. That brings us to the midway point in our discussion for today. So let's take a little bit of a break right now, but please stay tuned. We'll be right back. Welcome back, everybody. Let's continue with our explanation for today. Again, it's our News Digest unit. It's also our All English unit, so we're not going to be relying on the crutch of a Chinese teacher today. We are talking about how to treat chickens better, and we're also talking about something called the Better Chicken Commitment. This is probably the result of some activists in the UK who want various chicken producers and restaurants to abide by this better chicken commitment, to treat chickens better when they raise them. And we brought up the example of the Ross 308 breed, which grows up in only 35 days, and it can be killed or slaughtered for meat. And evidently, though, it probably has to suffer quite a lot of cruelty before it is killed. Now, here in the next paragraph, it says, entities that have signed the Better Chicken Commitment, an international initiative aimed at eliminating the use of fast-growing breeds like the Ross 308, and these entities agree to switch to slower-growing breeds in just a couple of years by the year 2026. So we've got these entities, which are basically things that exist. It's a pretty broad term, an entity, but it just refers to basic businesses and restaurants or whatever that exist, that have been founded and are producing income for their employees, etc., etc. So these entities, these companies, these restaurants, etc., that have signed the Better Chicken Commitment, which is an international initiative aimed at eliminating the use of fast-growing breeds like the Ross 308, they all agree to switch to slower-growing breeds by 2026. So again, this sentence could be shortened to entities that have signed the Better Chicken Commitment agree to switch to slower-growing breeds by 2026. But we have a clause in the middle of this sentence because we want to tell you exactly what the Better Chicken Commitment is. So what is that? Well, we have a comma here because this information is going to tell us what the BCC is, if they call it that. It's an international initiative, an effort made by people in different countries, which has the purpose of eliminating the use of those fast-growing breeds. They want to get rid of them, and that would include the Ross 308. And they want to do it in just a couple of years' time, in 3 years, I guess.
Yeah, it's pretty fast. An initiative is some sort of act or strategy that we use to kind of take care of a difficult situation or to improve a situation. You'll often see this word if the government's talking about something in the media, or maybe some social activism. They're talking about changing a problem in society. They'll use this word initiative. So yeah, they're promising or committing at least to agree to switch to the slower growing breeds by 2026. They will also monitor or track the welfare of the chickens they're responsible for. Yeah, it's good to look into, your farmers that you're buying your chickens from if you're a big business and see if they're doing what they said they were going to do, what they committed to do. And what they're going to do is provide these chickens with lower density enclosures. Density is how many people or things are in one small area. And an enclosure is just an area of land. It's usually surrounded by a wall or a fence. Here, of course, it would be a fence to keep the chickens in. The coop is actually, we call it a chicken coop if it looks like a little building and the chickens go inside. But if they're really free-range chickens, and you'll see that on packages of eggs that you buy sometimes, free-range chickens, just means these chickens don't have to be cooped up or put into that tiny space. They can just roam around the yard and they're much happier.
Until they're coaxed over to a chopping block, and then, of course, their heads are chopped off and they become fried chicken in a bucket. But in any case here, yes, at least they have the chance to, run around a little while and enjoy life before they are slaughtered, instead of spending their lives in an enclosure, which is a closed place, probably with no windows and no circulating air, and they probably have several chickens in one cage. And how would you like to spend your life all cooped up like that? Well, most chickens that people eat today are raised in cramped inhumane conditions. If something's cramped, it's small and crowded. If you live in Tokyo, for example, you might live in a cramped apartment. I understand that rents there are very expensive, so some people may live in very small apartments. They're quite cramped. They don't have a lot of room to move around. And if something's inhumane, then you're just not treating things nicely. You're being mean to them. You're being cruel to them. And to be humane means to be kind and gentle like humans are supposed to be.
Now, when these circumstances combine with generations of breeding for rapid growth, the result is great suffering for the chickens involved. So here's another organization called the Royal Society for the Prevention of Cruelty to Animals. That sounds like a British group because they have the Royal Society. We do not have royalty in America. That's what makes America so great. We don't have different classes of people. But in Europe, in a lot of the countries, they have royalty. And they've got this society, and they're supposed to help prevent cruelty to animals. They found that they are more susceptible to diseases. These chickens that are force-fed and grow quickly, if you're susceptible to something, it means you're at risk of developing something bad. Usually. I'm kind of susceptible to commercials on TV that are advertising cookies and donuts, which means when I see it, they're very effective with me. I want to go out and buy something when I see those commercials. So if you're susceptible, again, you usually fall victim to something more easily. Maybe you're susceptible to getting heart disease or diabetes because someone in your family has that. You would be more susceptible to having that particular condition as well if you don't take care of your body better.
Right, so the SPCA, or the Royal SPCA in the UK, found that these chickens are more likely to get diseases, and you might get sick by eating these chickens. And, of course, these chickens have a higher mortality rate. Mortality just refers to death. They die more frequently than other chickens, and this, of course, is when compared with slower-growing breeds. So it might be a good idea for all of us to eat free-range chicken meat as opposed to ones that are raised in this way in cramped conditions. And, of course, they're using the species or the breed, rather, Ross 308. So, yeah, it might be better for us to eat different chickens. Now, here in the final paragraph, it says, some might say that people cannot in good conscience eat meat that comes from animals that are tortured so badly in the process of being raised. Yes, some people might not be comfortable with that if they find out that, hey, that chicken sandwich you just had comes from a chicken that had to spend its entire life in a very small cage pecking other chickens, and it suffered its whole life. Can you stomach that if you just had that chicken sandwich? Yeah, some people might have a conscience about that. In good conscience, rather, just means you're thinking about things and you're thinking about your impact on the world and you're trying to figure out if you're acting right or wrong in the world. A lot of people probably don't really care. I don't really care where the chicken comes from. I'm hungry. Give me my G pie fun or whatever.
Right,
I'm going to eat that.
because it's tasty.
And I don't care how it's raised.
We'll often use conscience to talk about a guilty conscience. If you have a guilty conscience, you've probably done something wrong, and you feel bad about it because your conscience is that part of your mind that tells you whether what you're doing is right or wrong. If you have a clear conscience, it means you don't feel guilty about something because you don't think you've done anything wrong. So if you do something in good conscience, you are thinking about whether this particular situation is fair or not. So some people think, well, I can't eat those poor chickens that are treated so horribly. So they refuse to eat the meat that comes from these fast-growing breeds.
Exactly. So these people, of course, have a good conscience. And notice that we were having trouble kind of pronouncing this word conscience because it's very similar to another word, conscious, which means you haven't passed out. Maybe you've hiked to the top of Mount Everest or something and you've passed out. So you've lost consciousness. You're no longer conscious. But in this particular case, we've got an N in there, and that just refers to your spirit and how you feel about things, what is right and what is wrong, etc. So, yeah, some people cannot in good conscience eat meat that comes from animals that were tortured and treated so badly in the process of being raised. However, protein is an important part of our diet. It's an important nutrient, and the low cost of chicken makes it a vital component to a healthy diet, and it makes it more accessible. And therefore, as a result, vegetarian or vegan diets are probably not the best option for everyone because it's very difficult to get enough protein if you are a vegetarian.
Especially for kids,
especially for kids, there are various sources for protein, maybe from beans and things like that. But there's no better source for protein than meat.
Yeah. They've done some more recent tests on meat, and it turns out meat is actually quite good for you. So, yeah, but a lot of people feel very strongly about protecting the animals and not being cruel to them. I think that's a good thing. So, yeah, the problem is these chickens that grow more slowly, they cost more. All the best foods out there cost more. And there are families who can't afford to buy the more expensive brands or the more expensive chicken or the more expensive eggs. Even if you go to the aisle that sells the eggs in the supermarket, I'm shocked by the price difference between different brands of eggs, If I can afford it one week, sometimes I get the free-range eggs. But a lot of times I just buy the cheap ones because they're on sale. I don't have a lot of money. There are lots of problems with that. But buy the healthiest food that your budget can afford. I guess that's the best thing you can say about that.
And if you're not too concerned about your conscience, then you can eat whatever you want to. And I'm sure a lot of people are thinking, well, I'd like to eat free-range chickens and have eggs from free-range chickens, but, I'm on a tight budget here. I need to send my kids to school. My parents are getting sick, and I need to pay their medical bills, etc., etc. So some people do not have the luxury of buying more expensive things. So I guess the market is going to decide whether chickens are treated better or not. But in any case, we do have this agreement, the Better Chicken Commitment, and there are similar animal welfare plans out there. They strike a good balance between compassion and pragmatism. So if you're talking about compassion, of course, you're feeling about sympathy. You're talking about sympathy or feelings for your fellow creatures that live on the earth with you. And you might be religious. You might care about such things like that, especially if you're Buddhist or something like that. And pragmatism, of course, is being pragmatic or practical. And indeed, that basically refers to what I just said about being able to afford this stuff. If you're on a low budget and you're working as an Uber food delivery person or something like that, and you just don't have the kind of money to buy those kinds of eggs, then you have to be pragmatic and just buy the cheap things.
So you're being practical. You're not just talking about things in a theoretical way. Pragmatism actually means that you're dealing with real life. It's like the people on TV that say, go out and buy the electric car. It costs 4 times as much. You'd love to, but you know what? Sometimes your budget doesn't allow you to do that stuff. So right now we usually listen to our Chinese teacher, but not today. So we're going to sign off. Thanks for joining us, guys. And maybe look into this a little bit more. Find out what type of chickens your supermarket are selling, right? And see if you can do your part for these chickens. Give them a better life before they hit the slaughterhouse. For English Digest, I'm Stephanie.
And I'm Tom. Goodbye.
Bye.